Hey, folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the great human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. So happy to be with you here today, folks. We got a great episode for you. Ian and I are going to have a conversation together about what, Ian?
Anthony, we're going to talk about the Enneagram in the workplace. Specifically,
come on.
We're going to talk a little bit about my work with companies because, you know, what we don't talk about this a lot on the show, like at this kind of depth.
Right.
But now, after all these years, I've worked with so many companies and seen the Enneagram produce incredible changes in a fairly short period of time. And I just want to share, like, the difference that can make, like, in the workplace for people.
For sure. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I think it's like one of the most incredible tools for transformation and change on teams, senior leadership teams. You know, I've seen it applied in countless situations, and it's never disappointed me or the client.
Well, you've worked at this intersection of psychology, spirituality, leadership, and the Enneagram for years now. And I've gotten to be on this journey with you for 10 plus, and it's been awesome. And you are in the corporate space. So when leaders first hear the word Enneagram, I think many of them assume it's either like psychobabble or too woo-woo for the workplace. So how do you, when you work in these corporate environments, how do you reframe it for leaders who are responsible for not just culture, but performance and results?
Yeah. Well, listen, here's the deal. Like, I have worked with Myers-Briggs, Berkman, Colby, Hogan, DISC, StrengthsFinders, you know, any and all of these really incredible tools. And as you've heard me say before, I am in favor of any instrument that helps people develop more emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and can use that information to improve how they show up at work, right? And I just kind of reassure clients, because here's the deal. They come in with a bit of skepticism because they've probably tried a lot of these things before. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, here comes one more battery of tests to reveal something. And I'm like, okay, put the cynicism and the skepticism aside for a minute and just hear me out. Like, the Enneagram, unlike many of those instruments, is a very actionable, accessible, and even enjoyable framework for people to learn in, right? And, you know, I'm not here to, when I come in to speak at a company, to pass out impressive looking laminated name tags and notebooks. I really come in with some information that is going to be profoundly affecting to the workforce. And part of the reason for that, Anthony, is that many of these tools that are used out there describe how people behave, right? Mm-hmm. What they don't do is two things. They don't describe why they behave that way. So they don't really get at motivation, right? Mm-hmm. They're more concerned about describing what you do rather than why you do it.
Right, yeah.
Knowing motivation is really critical. The second thing is it doesn't offer a growth path. Like, okay, well, how do I get out of the largely unskillful, unhelpful patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting that I have lived in for decades, maybe my whole life, right? How do I begin to interrupt the circuit on those unskillful patterns so that I can show up to work more holistically and ready to go, right? So, I mean, that's how I start with leaders, right? I try to tell them, look, there are invisible dynamics at play in your teams all the time. They are unaware of them. Mm-hmm. This is going to make them aware of them. And the more aware of them that they are, right, the better they're going to be at becoming a cohesive team that celebrates its differences, that also leverages gifts, that's more compassionate, more empathic. And by the way, the research is so compelling on this stuff, right? Like a lot of times people call consultants because they want to see improved profit or productivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anything that is, you know, addressing the whole emotional intelligence field for some is like, yeah, I don't know. Just tell me how to make more money, right? Well, I actually then tell them that the research is very compelling. If you want to have a company that makes more money, create a culture of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. People will act better, they'll behave better, they'll perform better, and that will affect bottom line. And in many instances, I wish I could say to a client, I mean, I suppose I could, you don't have to pay me. All you have to do is give me a percentage of your upside that we can attribute to the changes inside of the company. And I'll tell you, I'd be a wealthier man than I am now if I had done that.
Yeah. Figure out a way to get those things measured, and who knows.
Yeah.
So as you've worked with a lot of organizations at different stages of growth, from your perspective, when teams begin to use the Enneagram well, what tends to improve first?
Ooh. Well, lots of things. Communication tends to become streamlined. People have different communication styles, depending on type. You also have an ability to start realizing, oh, that's how this person hears what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you just become more intelligent. Like you've heard me say this before. If you know the Enneagram, you know that you can't deliver the same 360 review of an 8 that you do with a 2, or vice versa.
Right.
Like they hear things differently. Different things get triggered. And when you know the Enneagram and you know that, you streamline and your communication becomes more targeted and intelligent. You're just aware, you have this kind of awareness that comes online. It helps with conflict resolution, right? It helps with conflict resolution. It helps with retention, because we know that workforces where people don't feel like they're understood and valued for the unique gifts that they bring to the table, they tend not to hang around very long.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When a leader is self-aware, they just do better at their jobs of managing people. And when that happens, people stick around.
Yeah.
They just want to be part of what's happening. Decision making, by the way, I could give you a long list, but decision making is another thing. Different types relate to decision making differently, right? So, helping people understand, oh, guess what? If you're a 6 on the Enneagram, decision making is a lot more difficult for you than it is for an 8 that tends to charge in very quickly with big decisions, right? Now, it doesn't mean they're the right decisions. That just means that they make them very quickly. So it's just about understanding motivations, fears, drives, and in a way that isn't overly clinical sounding, or, it's very relational. It's very relational.
I've had this phrase kind of rolling around in my head. What if great communication isn't just clarity, it's interpretation?
Say that again.
What if great communication isn't just clarity, but it's interpretation? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
It's like, for me, it plays into Enneagram. When you understand motivations, then you can interpret like why somebody does something potentially more
I
than,
see. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Anyway, it's just something I've been sort of toying around with. I think about the idea of how we misread each other. And I know that a lot of companies are starting to use assessments to create like a shared language. When we're talking about Enneagram assessment, how can you use the Enneagram and an Enneagram assessment to build awareness without just turning it into a labeling exercise? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's all about how you teach it, right? Yeah. And I'm very careful when I teach it to tell people this isn't about labeling. This isn't about, diagnosing somebody's pathologized personality. It's really about understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, you've heard me say this before, right? It's about probabilities, not certainties.
Right.
Well, for example, when you understand the Enneagram, you know that in a high stress moment inside of a company, that your Enneagram 6, and I don't know why I'm picking on sixes today, but that your sixes, it's probable that they will have this reaction. It's not for sure,
Yeah.
but it's probable.
Yeah.
Right. So you just take that on board when you're in those high stress moments as a manager, right? If you got a bunch of sixes, okay, I got to explain stuff here
Mm-hmm.
because it's probable that they are going to question me at length to find out if I have a contingency plan for every catastrophe that they're imagining is going to happen.
Right.
So I'm just thinking, all right, I got, my CFO is a 6, let's say, and I'm going to have a longer conversation with her than I am with my 8, because they're going to have a lot more questions. There's going to be more anxiety in the room.
Right.
There's going to be more awfulizing of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to listen to all of their questions and not dismiss any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to do a lot of reassuring that I know that, this direction that we're moving in is the right one, and I want them on board. So, all of that stuff, like, for me,
and to treat those two types the same way when the system is insane, right? An 8 and a 6.
Yeah. Well, listen, here's what most people do when they don't know the Enneagram.
Yeah.
They assume, understandably, but wrongly, they assume that everybody is interpreting reality the same way they are.
Right.
That's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Right. You have to recognize, people process information. They interpret reality differently than through a different lens than I do. Mm-hmm. And when you know that and you bake it into your calculations, your communications become very different with people.
So it's less about categorizing people and more about creating this shared understanding across the workplace. So how have you seen assessments like the insights that help teams normalize the differences in their communication and work styles?
Yeah. I mean, let me think if I can think of an example of this. So there was a company in New York, and they had an Enneagram workshop. And when the teacher returned for a follow-up, they discovered that they had all put their Enneagram numbers on their suite office doors to their offices. Mm-hmm. And because they had really made a push to not just have their employees understand their own types, but to understand all the types, it was a complete culture changer. Just complete change, right? The 8 walked into the 7's office and knew that this was probably how the conversation was going to go. They knew the 9 knew that when they went in to see the 2, that they needed to ask about their family and their friends and how they were feeling today instead of just getting right to the point. The 1 knew that, it's like everybody just, and you don't have to have like an in-depth knowledge of every type, but even a cursory knowledge of every type would improve things pretty dramatically in a really wonderful, wonderful way. So, I mean, it seems to me that the Enneagram could be seen as an invitation to understanding difference in such a way that it leads to more efficiency and more productivity because people are understanding each other and you're not running into the same brick wall over and over again with different kinds of people.
That's
right?
good.
Let me give you an example of this. So today I was on a call with a client and they had a hardcore Enneagram 1 who was a personal assistant, and they killed it at that job. They crushed it. Mm-hmm. They were a personal assistant for 2 members of the staff. But they began to realize that this person had more capacity. They could do this job in their sleep. So they made them project manager of a major expansion. Okay. Like a big building project.
Right.
And This person crushed it, right? And I said, well, tell me, like, what brought you to this awareness? And it was like, well, the Enneagram did. Like this is where this person really shines. They were incredibly organized. By the way, the owner of this company is a 6 who has a very busy mind. They're not into details, not like many 6s are. Unusually, this person is not, and they get kind of befuddled in the details. This one man, they crushed it, and I don't think before that he would have made that decision about appointing this one in that direction if it wasn't for the Enneagram. They just knew, okay, like there's more capacity here. And he also knows how to manage them when they, go off the rails as, in a one-ish kind of way. Yeah, so helpful.
So we talked about clear communication, and that brings us to conflict. So in high pressure environments, we know that miscommunication can escalate.
Oh, yeah.
How does the Enneagram help teams reduce reactivity during that conflict?
Yeah, good question. So it's so interesting you asked this because I just recently did a workshop at a company about how do you have hard conversations? Like, how do you handle conflict? Because it's interesting, isn't it, that none of us are taught, there's no class in elementary school.
Right.
About, hey, here's how to have a hard conversation and speak what's on your mind. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's also like, I wish there was there's someone out there should do a children's book on the Enneagram that just describes the 9 types, right? Yeah. It's like, just to communicate to kids very early on, guess what? There are different people in the world.
Yeah.
And here's 9 that we see a lot. And you should know about them because they're really cool, right?
It's good.
And maybe I should do that.
I have a child who had to have a hard conversation with a friend. And based on some of what we're talking about, I gave a list of curious questions to help navigate the difficult conversation she was about to have.
Yeah.
But the same kind of thing. It's like growing up, you were never taught like how to deal with conflict, hard conversations. And the Enneagram is sort of like, can be a secret sauce to help you,
Yes. Right. Okay. So we actually did some role playing when I led this workshop. And, I'd say, okay, now keeping in mind that Bobby is a 7 and you are a 3, then I gave them a scenario, right? And about a hard conversation. And, it was something like, you were late to work 3 days this week. And how to present that in a way that the probabilities of a positive outcome are increased. Mm-hmm. It's not bulletproof, but how can we craft a framework for conversation? And the Enneagram played a major role in it, right? Because once they could also master the kinds of stages in a conversation, then I was able to say to blend in with it. How is the 3 thinking and how is the 7 thinking in this conversation? So they can anticipate, knowing that there were probables happening in the room as they were having this hard conversation, right? So, I think every company should have a workshop on how to have hard conversations. And when people aren't doing their jobs, when they're acting out in ways that are unhelpful or hurtful to the team, but also to do it with the full knowledge of the Enneagram on board, because man, that helps big time.
And you've worked with senior leaders who are 8s, who are 7s, who are 6s, who are 3s, of course, it's a little more common. As you work with these leaders, like how does the Enneagram help those leaders understand the impact of their leadership style, not just their intentions? Because I'm thinking about what you said with the 7 and the 8 and the 6 and the 7, they all approach things differently, and they might have, very different forms of how they deliver something, and the intention may not be caught, but the impact of their leadership style is definitely caught.
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One is, if there's one thing I've learned is nobody gives a rip about your intentions.
Yeah.
They only care about your actions.
Right.
You could be well-intended, badly intended, right? But for the most part, people are more concerned with your actual behavior than your intentions, right? Because ultimately that's what affects them. Another thing that I would say that leaders begin to understand when they work with the Enneagram is how they land on other people. Like, here's a question I often ask my clients to go out and ask. I'll say to them, find 5 people that you know from different domains in your life, at work, at home, friends, kind of like a 360 of your life. People who see you in lots of different contexts, and ask them this question: what's it like to be on the other side of me?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
What's it like to be on the other side of me?
Wow.
And I just had a client do this, and he got, I'm not kidding you. I just read through it today, like 20 pages of feedback.
And can you talk about what some of that was?
Yeah, because I'm not actually mentioning this person's name. You would never be able to figure it out. But patterns of being overly controlling, being a little bit of a bully at times, of caring too much about what other people think of them, of just a whole host. I mean, it was 20 pages, and I just wrote up a summary this morning, and it was incredibly clarifying for me.
That's amazing to get that kind of feedback.
Oh yeah. And I mean, he obviously has really loyal friends because they really went for it.
Yeah.
And they were super honest. Also, this person had their kids answer, their adult children answer. And those kids didn't hold back. They were really honest.
Wow.
And what came out is, okay, this guy has a clear set of problems in his relational style, and also a clear set of incredibly beautiful gifts that they highlighted as well. Right? Like, so it wasn't all negative. I mean, there was a lot of really positive stuff, but this is a really really useful thing to use in the workplace, right? Like, what's it like to be on the other side of me? Tell me.
Oh my goodness.
And then when someone starts to talk, say, tell me more. And then keep saying, tell me more until they're exhausted, right? Because we just don't know. We're so blind. Aristotle has the great quote, right? Self-knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. That's what the Enneagram does. It provides self-knowledge. And that's the beginning of wisdom, not just, information, but real wisdom. And once it's applied. And, just to know, how am I landing on people? Like, how does my personality, how is it when it's in the room, what does it do to other people?
Yeah, that makes me, I definitely want to put that question out to some people.
Yeah, it's actually really, I did it a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago. I think I even asked you. You didn't give me any information because you're a jerk. But I
can tell you what it's like being on the other side of that statement.
Well, yeah. No, but I mean, like I asked, because I will be I'll be vulnerable for a second.
Okay.
I was starting to feel like in different settings, like I was having trouble actually deeply connecting with people. Like, in my professional capacity, that's not a problem. But in my day-to-day life,
yeah,
and I was starting to experience loneliness. And I started to wonder, is it me? Which is always a good question. Is there something I do repeatedly that I don't see? Because it's like your eyes can't see your own eyes.
100%. Yeah.
Right? And so, how do I, should I be made aware of patterns that are not serving me well and are thwarting deep relationships? So I started asking the question.
I just want to encourage, if you're in a marriage, if you're a dad or a mom, but man, if you have 3 to 5 to 10,000 people working under you, What a great question to ask. I mean, I wish there's some people I have worked for that I wish would have asked that question. It makes me sad for them.
Yeah, most people, listen, it's not an easy exercise because you will hear some things
hard,
that are tough, unflattering.
Yeah.
You know, but it's better that you know.
Yeah.
You know, than not. So, yeah. And by the way, some of the things that they said were just pure Enneagram 4 stuff.
Right.
That wasn't helpful.
I'm sure, yeah.
You know? Hey, everybody. I want to speak especially to my friends who are Enneagram 9 peacemakers right now. If you're an Enneagram 9, you likely know the quiet art of disappearing. Not in a dramatic way, just subtly. You defer, you harmonize, you make space for everyone else. And somewhere along the way, your own longings, opinions, even your anger get tucked away in a drawer labeled later. And later rarely comes. So on March 17th at 7 p.m. Central, we're creating a sacred pause just for you. A 2-hour live gathering called Here I Am, Finding My Voice. This is a guided group experience specifically for Enneagram Type 9s who want to feel more awake to their own lives, more embodied, more present, more willing to say, gently but clearly, this is what I think, this is what I feel, this is what I want. And I'm honored to be leading it alongside Enneagram 9 and my dear friend, Seth Abrams, who is an Enneagram expert. Seth brings deep wisdom, lived experience, and a steady, grounded presence to this work. We'll be teaching together, holding space together, and walking with you together. Throughout our time, we'll offer short teachings, guided reflections, shared understanding, and honest conversation. Nothing forced, nothing performative, just a room, virtual, of course, but real, where you can practice showing up without disappearing. For 9s, finding your voice isn't about becoming someone else, right? It's about coming home to yourself. It's about remembering that your presence matters. Your energy matters. Your no matters. Your yes matters. So if you've been living at half volume, this is an invitation to gently turn the dial up. It's March 17th, 7 p.m. Central Time, 2 hours set apart just for Enneagram 9s. The cost is $97, which is far less than 2 hours of therapy, I might add. So to sign up or learn more, visit ianmorgancron.com/HereIam.
So, as we've talked about you in the corporate space, we've definitely talked about burnout. What does the Enneagram reveal about stress versus sustainable performance?
Well, as you know, right, the Enneagram has these arrows, and the arrows kind of show. So, all right, I'm a 4. When I'm doing really well, I'm on the high side of 4, right? And when I'm humming along, I also, I'm in a really secure place. I start to look, act, and feel a little bit like an Enneagram 1 in a good space, right? Now, when I'm under stress, I will shoot every arrow in the 4 quiver until I'm out of ammo.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when I'm out of ammo, I'm going to go to the low side of 2 and start using those arrows, which is not going to do great.
The strangest thing happened the other day. Ian called me and asked if he could make me some spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, so, when you're dealing with stress in the workplace, it's really good when your team knows the Enneagram because they can start to spot it in themselves and others once they know where each type goes when they're doing great and when they're not doing great, when they're under too much stress. And when people know that, they can begin to talk about the stress, right? Now, some environments too, like, all right, here's another example of this. I worked with a company and the leader was an 8 on the Enneagram, hardcore, and not very emotionally intelligent until we started doing some work together. And I said to him one day, I said, the resting heart rate of this company is way too high. The stress in here is just, you can taste it. Like it's like metal in my mouth. It's like, I can just taste it. It's like really harsh. Rah, 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 like this sort of thing. I said, do you know how this is landing on people? Like, do you have any idea that, like, you can deal with stress, maybe at this kind of stress, but do you know how it's landing on your 5s? What it's doing to your 6s? What it's doing to your 1s? What it's doing to your 9s? Like, do you have any idea? People just need to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So I said, you are on a collision course with your own termination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Because you're driving people at stress levels that are unsustainable.
Yeah.
And once you start to learn about like different types, things that are stressors, things that, ways of helping them navigate seasons of when there's greater stress, which happens in businesses, right? And also to communicate care, was super helpful. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I had a guy I was working for and talked to him a bit about this process. He was an 8 and one of those, rah, just bully and push past and ask for forgiveness instead of permission, and just everybody's being kind of drug along,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's taking, high blood pressure medicine but creating a whole culture around him of super stressed out people. And just, man, it's like, this isn't even working for you, but this is sort of your default. Can you see the culture that's being created around you because you're just sort of defaulting to the lower side of your type, But it was helpful to be able to use that terminology to talk to him,
It's interesting. I remember I had a conversation with somebody at a company I was working with, and he said something that really stuck with me. We were talking about culture, and this is a little off topic, but it's still valuable. He said, culture isn't set by mission statements and stuff.
Mm.
He said, culture is set by who people fire and who they hire. He said, that's kind of in his experience. And this is a guy in upper leadership, right? He said, it really comes down to, like, if you hold on to somebody that is harming the system, right, they're off the leash, but you hold on to them because they're just a great performer, and you're just going to make everybody endure them well past their expiration date because they make a lot of money. That's a culture setter.
Dang.
Right? Because what you're saying is money is more important than anything.
Yeah.
It's more important than my other team members.
Right.
This person's, creating havoc everywhere. That, like, by holding on to them, you've set a culture without saying a word.
Mm. That's good.
Yeah.
What happens when teams experience the Enneagram, like learning it together as opposed to learning it on their own?
Oh, well, first of all, like when we go in to do these workshops, it's super fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Like, all right, so let me just say this. Like, one of the reasons I love what I do for a living is that, and this is going to sound cocky, I don't want it to, but it is the absolute truth. I've never had a disappointed client. But when I go into a company and do a day-long workshop or more with them, it's not because I'm a genius. It's because the material is genius, and I didn't invent it, so I can't take credit for it. Right? I bring a particular kind of voice to it that's my own, and that makes for a really fun, engaging day. So that's my contribution to it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when you learn it as a team, dude, I got to tell you, it is not unusual for me to be describing a type and different people in the room gasping.
Mm-hmm.
Like these aha moments happening everywhere. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'll say something like, anybody know someone like this? And everyone raises their hand, starts laughing, or they start elbowing the person next to them because it's them. Or it's a really fun day.
Who is the guest we had on that thought she was a 1, but she was a 3? She was with Twitter early on.
Oh, Claire Diaz-Ortiz.
Yeah.
Claire Diaz-Ortiz.
And someone told her she was a 1.
Oh, yeah.
And so she just sort of adopted that. But when she got on the show, it was unbelievable, like how I mean,
Oh, remember that? She nearly passed out.
and then we had her back and she was different. We had her back 6 months later and she went through a transformation.
She did.
She even looked different.
Night and day different.
She even physically looked different.
Night and day different. Yeah, she had a spiritual awakening.
She really did.
As the result of learning her Enneagram type, which is kind of what you want.
Yeah.
By the way, people ask because sometimes people know that I'm a priest in addition to being a therapist, and sometimes companies get a little because of, especially if it's a public company, they don't want to have someone sue them for bringing in a religious person to talk about God or something.
Right.
I never talk about that stuff in corporate settings.
Yeah.
When I use the word spirituality, which I rarely use, but if I did, I'm very careful to define it as, that part of us that's wrestling with larger existential ultimate questions about who we are, why we're here, what our purpose is, kind of these themes of sort of transcendent subjects.
Yeah.
And they're very comfortable, with that kind of stuff. But I'm very cautious about not bringing my own particular biases, prejudices, or beliefs and using them in the workplace. I don't do that.
That's good. All right. As we start to wrap here.
What?
Yes.
What?
It's time. It's time. We're over time.
No, we're not.
We're past
We're doing
time.
great. We're killing it.
Let me hit you with this. If a leadership team could adopt just one Enneagram-based practice and improve their culture and performance, which one would you recommend?
Oh, gosh. One Enneagram thing that they could do. All right. Well, one is obviously learn their own type, begin to implement some changes in the way that they relate to others to generate curiosity, right? It's also making a point of understanding the types of the people that work for them.
Mm.
And beginning to treat them in a new and different way as the result of what you've learned, right? It is about then eventually introducing the system to the company through like a day-long workshop, something like that, where they, all learn about each other's types. I mean, look, at the end of the day, sometimes like there are so many wake-up calls on a Enneagram workshop day. Like one is, oh my gosh, not everyone thinks like I do. Like right, that has been taken to a whole new level of understanding. Like I kind of already knew that, but I didn't realize how much, and in what ways people are different. And then beginning to use the language of the Enneagram inside the company as a way to talk safely about how things are going, like what's going on inside of different people as you take on different tasks. All right, let me give you an example. So you have an Enneagram 1, they're very self-critical. They're like a self-pres 1, super critical. And, sometimes a boss who learns the Enneagram doesn't go in and say, you did this wrong. They might go in and say, listen, in general, you're an incredible employee. I want to point out one thing that's not going well to improve your performance and to help you be a better version of yourself. And then they share it. And then they might say, now look, I know that when I leave this office, you probably will beat yourself up for not having done this at the start. And I said, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to see this as just don't double click this too much. Just say, just need to tweak this, So it's just this kind of sensitivity to things.
Mm-hmm.
That just makes you move through the world with more emotional wisdom. That's all. Just start to employ it.
Sweet. Well, before we go, why don't you tell our listeners, leaders, and teams where they can go to either go deeper through an assessment or training or working with you directly? Like what are the steps they take?
Yeah, the best place to start is just to go ianmorgancron.com. There you're going to find Enneagram resources, information about the assessment, ways teams can work with me directly to have me come into the company, do a day-long workshop, or to do coaching with some individual members of the team that are struggling with EQ. Like I help leadership teams and organizations address all kinds of challenges, right? Miscommunication, burnout, leadership under pressure, or cultures that feel harder to sustain than they should, right? And And when companies bring me in, to work with them directly, the Enneagram becomes more than just insight, right? It becomes a shared experience that improves communication. It builds trust, which is enormously important, because that's just like one of the top things that is problematic on teams, and helps people understand what's really driving their behavior, especially when the stakes are pretty high. So my work is tailored to executive teams, leadership offsites, organizations that want measurable cultural and leadership impact. So it's not just a workshop that checks the box of the chief people officer to help people feel good in the moment, right? It's about so much more than that. And here's the beautiful byproduct of it all. And because I get emails, someone will say to me, "You really helped me at my job, but boy, I also walked away really understanding my partner and my children better." So it has all kinds of 360 kind of ripple effects, positive ripple effects into other areas of their lives. And that's a win. So yeah, they can always reach out to Wendy at ianmorgancron.com to make inquiries about speaking gigs or workshop with people, or the assessment. Oftentimes we sell the assessment. If someone's ordering, let's say 50 of them, obviously we reduce the price pretty dramatically. And, let's get working together.
Love it. Well, thanks for taking us through this. And we've enjoyed being with you all again for another episode of Typology. You want to sign us off, Ian?
Yeah, man. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have rest. All good things to you. Until next time, everybody.